Today, we are going to be diving deep into the statistics of everything that I gathered over the past 2 weeks to figure out how do the random perk drops actually work. Alright, hello and welcome back, you absolute losers. So, here we are, this time around with something completely different. I have spent the past 2 weeks and played a total of 25 games across every standard map to figure out the statistics behind how often the random perk drop occurs. Not the random perk drop that you get from like shooting something or getting it as a reward. We are talking exclusively about whenever killing a zombie, and sometimes the perk, but the drop is a random perk drop. Okay, so basically we are just going to get straight on into it, so I'm not wasting your time. Okay, so first we are going to dive into how this works. So we had 25 games that we played across every single standard map, 5 games each: Ashes, Astra, Paradox, Totenreich, and Kawakajo, right? So first we are going to dive into the results of all of the maps. So Ashes, on the first game we played, we had a random perk drop on round 16. The second game we played, we had a random perk drop on round 11 and on round 18. And then the following 3 games, we had nothing. Astra, the first 4 games, we got no random perk drop, and then 1 random perk drop on the 5th game on round 14. Paradox, similar-ish story. We had a random perk drop the first game on round 22, and then the following 4 games, absolutely nothing. Totenreich, we had absolutely no perk drops all 5 games, and same with Kawakajo, no perk drops all 5 games. So, basically, I will show up real fast on the screen how I came to the conclusion of 47 average drops per game. Every single game was played up to round 41 for consistency, to make sure that if a random perk drop occurred later in the game, it wouldn't skew the results at all, right? So basically, because if I would have went later and been like, oh, I didn't get any, but I did, you know, it would have occurred. But regardless, so I'll shoot up how I came up with the 47 drops average per game to 21 rounds. It's a bit more on the lower side, but I'd rather err on the low side than go way too high, and, you know, so on and so forth. So basically, throughout the entire test, we had a total of 25 games, 47 drop average. That is a total drops throughout the entire test of 1,175 drops. Now, we only had 5 perk drops, 5 random perk drops over the course of those assumed 1,175 drops. So that gives us a average percentage drop of the random perk occurring being 0.34%. So that means 0.34% of the time that you get a drop, it has, well, I guess a 0.34% chance of being a random perk drop. Now, like I said, this is not factual. I do not look into the game codes. This is based off of statistics that I gathered on my own of a random average that I decided to come up with. So, take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt, but this took me 2 weeks to do. So leave me the fuck alone, okay? Alright, so that means, depending on how you want to look at it, right? So I have a couple different statistics depending on how you want to look at it. So like I said, when you get a random perk drop, based off of my statistics alone, okay, your results may vary, and they most likely will, okay? The percentage chance you have of any given drop being a random perk drop is 0.34%. So, in other standards, that would give you 1 time out of every 294 drops, on average, your drop will be a random perk drop. So, that's just another way of looking at it. So, another statistic I have here is 235 drops per map. So, every map that we played, like I said, we played 5 maps, or 5 different matches per map in total with our 47 drop average. That leaves us with 235 drops per map for said test. Alright, so with that given statistic, I'm going to move into the percentage chance on a given map that one of your drops will be a random perk drop. Now, like I said, this is probably not true. I can probably almost guarantee you that every single map has a same percentage chance of it occurring, but the reason I wanted to do it per map was in case it's different, but also just as a little interesting statistic because I think it's pretty cool. So, for example, Ashes, 3 drops out of the 235 drops per map which gives us 3 of the drops were a random perk drop, which leaves us with a 128% chance that any given drop on Ashes of the Damned that you get could be a random perk drop. Like I said, this is most likely not true. This is probably 100% not true. I just thought this was a really cool statistic, okay? Moving on to Astra and Paradox, because they both only had one drop out of the 235 that we supposedly got, right, was a random perk drop, leaving us with a 0.43% chance. Makes a lot of sense, because it's pretty close to the 0.34 average that we came up with, right? And then Totenreich and Kawakajo, technically, we had no drops out of the 235 rounds per map. For both of those, that would leave us with a 0% chance, but that's not how we're going to run this. We're just going to leave it at the base 0.34 because, you know, with that, that still leaves us the chance that we didn't get it, right? Now, I will say, right, I found this pretty interesting because, number one, I haven't played Ashes of the Damned in, like, forever. I absolutely despise that map. I do actually, after playing it a little bit, okay, I will say it did get a little bit better. But so I don't think I've ever gotten a random perk drop while playing on that map, even though I've only played like 30 games. Astra, I'm surprised I even got one. I think before this test, I had 8 matches played on Astra, so I had no idea what it was going to be. Paradox really did surprise me, however, because Paradox, I've had experiences where on Paradox, like 4 games in a row, I would get random perk drops. And then this time around, I only got 1 during the 5 games, which was pretty interesting to me. And then Totenreich and Kawakajo, I have never, in the history of me playing those maps, ever gotten a random perk drop, especially from Totenreich, because I'm like top 70 for players for solo on Totenreich. I've played that map so much, and I've never gotten a random perk drop, so that kind of fits. So who knows, maybe based off of my subjective experience and the statistics, maybe there is something to be said about per map differences, but I have no idea. Okay, take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. And then on top of that, we have a couple more statistics here. So, the average round that the perk drop was received on was round 16, based off of all the times that we got it. So, and I will say, it appears that random perk drops occur a lot earlier in the game than they do later, but like I said, I only went to around 41. Who knows? Maybe going up to around like 100, you get more because there's a lot more zombies to kill, a higher chance of getting drops. I do not know, okay? And then we played a total of 1,025 total rounds played throughout the 25 games that we did, which gives us another statistic, if you want to look at it this way, that on average, you will get 1 random perk drop every 205 rounds, just purely killing zombies. So I found this pretty interesting. I hope some other people did too. I just decided randomly, hey, let's go out and do this, and I actually plan on doing a couple more videos, just kind of diving into some random shit that I think about trying to figure out, like for example random perk drops. I want to do some drop testing in general, seeing which of them is actually more common, if there is an even common one, or if it is just random, you know, just diving into random shit like that. I thought it was pretty cool, but yeah, so those are some pretty interesting statistics, and based off of all of these, it looks like Ashes of the Damned is the map that'll give you the highest chance of random perk drop, but like I said, take that all with a massive grain of salt. That could just be, this could just all be random. This could all just be stupid and bullshit, but just a fun video. I had a pretty interesting time, but playing Astra Melora made me want to. But regardless, as always, appreciate you coming out, spending a little bit of your time with me today. I do truly fucking appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this little bit of a random video compared to what I usually do. And yeah, as always, hope you guys have a fucking good one.